All right, it's January 25th, 2012, and I'm doing a sound check. This is Reality Supreme Being, also known as HRM, Caesar St. Augustine de Buonaparte, presidential candidate. And by the way, you know, I ran in the two last elections, and like I said, the media totally ignored me. I was on a radio station. I had alternative presidential debates, and the rush hour crowd voted me as the winner against 4 different unknown presidential candidates, and I got more than 90% of the vote on each one of them. You can check that out. It was an FM radio station in Kansas City, Missouri. Anyway, but that's not what I'm talking about today. You know, I talked yesterday about debates and how idiots like these puppets that work for Bilderberg Group, Trilateral Commission. I just had a couple of messages on the 20th from some guy, and he said, "What are you doing? And you didn't mention the 5 freaking websites." Hey, guy, I got to tell you, you got to listen to all my rants and raves. That's all of you, all of your punishments for my mistreatment and abuse. Yeah, there are secret, really fantastic things I talk about, like the one I'm about to talk about now. I warned the United States about all kinds of biological weapons that the terrorists could use against this country or any other country. I'm not going to go into those lists because I'm going to talk about something more important, how the government has and does control every situation, and I'm going to tell you how they do it. Now, in the meantime, first I'm going to go off beat here for a minute. You see this thing? I'm going to hold it up here. You see this big thing? That's an old thing that I just found off of a big screen TV thrown in an alley. Now, you know what this thing does once you remove the cover off of it? The sun is out right now. It's about 3:50 in the afternoon in California. And this little piece of plastic could be set up in any forest and arranged to start a forest fire by remote control at any time. So you talk about terrorism. Hey, I know exactly how they do it. They don't have to make little planes, remote control carrying biological things like gas gangrene, which they make at Fort Detrick in Maryland. They don't have to carry any of the 1,700 biological agents that they have. Probably more by now. That was like more than 5 years ago. So you could set up one of these screens. And by the way, they use one of these screens to run a Stirling engine, a heat engine. On YouTube, they've just put in Stirling engine. You'll see them using this type of screen to heat up the dome thing on the Stirling engine. But you take one of these large screens and you put it up to a leaf. And mind you, this is extremely dangerous. I wouldn't advise anybody to do it if they don't know what they're doing. But you take any one of these out of one of those old TVs, and it will light a leaf in less than a second. Like that. I'm serious. That's how strong the focused energy is on this cheap piece of plastic that is centered at the center of the screen. So all somebody would have to do is cut out a round circle, mount it a certain way, wait for the sun, test it one day, make sure that the sun comes up at a certain time, and leave. Point it at a bunch of leaves or forest, whatever, it would start a forest fire, and bingo! It goes up the national forest. And the neat thing about it is this thing would melt. So all you'd have is just a bunch of melted plastic with people scratching their heads. But see, that's what I mean by the government. The United States knows that I know all this information, and instead they have blacklisted me, they have attacked me, they have done all this crap to me through the city of Los Angeles, the county. This is how they operate. Now, I'm about to tell you why these people are evil. I'm going to prove it to you that you are under their control. Now, if you don't have any training, and if you didn't pay attention in school to physics, we're all made of atoms. Now, atom is so tiny, you can only be seen with an electron microscope. IBM took singular atoms and spelled the word IBM with single atoms. That's a fact, okay? I don't have to prove anything. Go check it out. Now, next step. Now that you know how small atoms are, let's go up one big size bigger, the cell of a human being. You got 100 trillion of them. Of those cells, in order for life to be possible, you have to be composed of these elements right here in that order. Oxygen 65%, carbon 18%, hydrogen 10%, nitrogen 3%, phosphorus, potassium 0.35%, sulfur 0.25%, so on and so on and so on. Then there's the what they call the smaller elements, trace elements, and those are much, much smaller. Each one of those elements has a frequency modulation. They mentioned this in a three-part series of string theory. Three-part series of string theory. Check that out. Maybe you have to go to the library to get it. Now let's start talking frequency modulation. The whole universe literally is humming at 4,080 million hertz. It's a B tone. Now let's go one step up bigger. In order for you to control a human being that has 100 trillion cells, you'd have to be able to have a machine that could generate an equal modulation in hertz of, where's my page? There it is, of what they call the Larmor frequencies. Hydrogen operates at about 42,577,600 hertz. That's E tone. Phosphorus operates at 17,236,000 hertz. Carbon operates at 10,705,000 hertz. And down the scale, oxygen at 5,772,000 hertz, sulfur at 3,266,000 hertz, and nitrogen at 3,076,000 hertz. In order, where I've just mentioned them, that would be the tone of E, the tone of C, C sharp for the second one. The third one would be tone E. The fourth one would be the tone F and F sharp. The fifth one would be G and G sharp. And the last one will be tone, which is nitrogen, F sharp, and G. Now, doesn't mean that if we walk around that we're hearing these frequencies. We're not. I mean, there are billions and billions of atoms in just one cell. So you can imagine what kind of frequency modulations we're all operating at. The reason for a lot of, let's say, discomfort around certain individuals, your frequencies don't match. Let me make it as simple as I can for you. You ever been to a rock concert and the band takes a break? The snare drum, which is one of the main drums, has a little metal belt along the bottom. When somebody hits a certain tone in a guitar, a certain note, that snare drum vibrates all by itself. You can hear it. It goes shh, shh. That's what I'm talking about. Matching frequencies. This is why some relationships last longer than others. Yes, this goes into psychology. And wars, and death, and destruction, and why people are such idiots. You are what you eat, and you are what you supplement. So if you don't think right, if you don't eat right, you're not thinking right, they used to say. I've changed it. I say if you don't eat right and you don't supplement correctly, and I'm not talking vitamins, you're not thinking right. I don't care how rich you are, how smart you are, whatever. And you'll get jumble thoughts, you'll get jumble feelings, you'll get all of this weird stuff that happens. Now, that happens to everybody. Now, in the 1960s was a guy named David Marks who wrote a book called In Search of the Manchurian Candidate. In it, the CIA was experimenting with exactly what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, Ralph McGehee, who was mentioned in Frank Durrell's videos, which I mentioned before in one of my videos, about people, this country addicted to war. I gave his number, his phone number, and his address where you can get his stuff. In it, he talks about Ralph McGehee, who used to be in the CIA. They chopped gorillas' heads off and transplanted them on other gorillas to see if radio frequencies would revive them. Do you realize how crazy that sounds? This is all true. This all happened. Now, why would they be doing that? Because they want to control you. If they can't control you with the laws and all of this other stuff, then they'll control you through frequency modulation at a distance by remote control. How do you like being a guinea pig, everybody? The Democrat, Republican Party Council on Foreign Relations, the Rockefellers, they're all in. They're plugged into this stuff. They are so plugged into this stuff that you are a total nutcase. I'm not the nutcase. You are. All of you. Every voting American citizen is being taken advantage of, and you don't even know it. And when someone like me comes along and explains it to you on a physical level, where you go look in a biology book and compare it to an astronomy book and all the things I'm telling you about the DNA and what kind of frequency modulations you're all operating at, this explains, to some degree, more or less, why some relationships last more longer than others. It also explains why even the love, the care, the alleged, relationship, the whole relationship, why it can really be hot and cold sometimes. If you ate a bunch, as crazy as it sounds, or as unillogical as it sounds, a woman eating a whole bunch of yams might really turn her frequency modulation a certain way that would create certain behaviors patterns. Whereas a guy could drink a bunch of who knows what, a bunch of green tea and olives and ice cream and get a completely different frequency modulation. Anyway, the point I'm making is, see, we're all made of atoms. These atoms all vibrate. I just told you what they vibrate at. Now, they don't vibrate, these frequencies I just mentioned, they don't vibrate like that at that level 100% of your lifetime. They go up and down like the stock market depending on what you eat. So I'm now explaining not only to America but the whole world what these secret agencies have done in the past and what they're probably doing now. Now let's see, why would they allow a person like me to stay alive unless I'm telling you the truth? They steal from me. They watch these videos, they don't care about, they don't pay attention to the ranting and raving. They're waiting for me to screw up and say something that they've never heard that they can go investigate immediately. Oh God, he said something really profound. Let's go check it out. Wow. We might be able to use that and actually might be able to control more people with his ideas. See? If Einstein, Tesla, Edison, if all those guys were alive right now, they would curse the United States for what they've been doing secretly for more than probably 50 years. Definitely the last 20 years. Do I have a way of proving any of this? Probably not. Freedom of Information Act would only allow certain information to get out. But you know, you can't keep a lid on something like this. They teach this in school. If in fact I possess, we're at 13 minutes almost, I may have to cut this short. If I exist of these elements, which we all do, and these elements change configuration by my health, by being abused, anger causes chemical reactions. Chemical reactions all are made of atoms, and they all vibrate at certain frequencies. So yes, a person's going to be affected by it, especially me. I'm going to jump from subject to subject. Who knows? They probably like the idea I jump from subject to subject because it confuses people, and they don't want to listen to me. But see, they are listening to me because they're taking and making notes and writing all the important things they want to write so that later on, if I happen to make an impression on, if all of a sudden 100 million people were looking at this video and went to investigate all the stuff I'm talking about on YouTube, they take all their money out of the banks and maybe they would stop driving their cars and say, you know what, Caesar's right. We need to get rid of you. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. You've got so many people running things that we can't get anything done that works and is guaranteed to work at least for a little while. I mean, look at your rap sheet. Remember what I said about the human race? 7,750 years of war and bits and pieces all over the world compared to only less than 300 years of war all over the world. You figure it out. You figure it out, and then you, like I said, go make comments to the lousy, stinking White House. Go make comments to your congressmen and your senators because they're all in the conspiracy, and it is a conspiracy. And they themselves are conspiracies of themselves as well. Because remember, they're made of atoms too, and they can be controlled also. So who's really pulling the strings on all of these puppets? Money? Because even the Bilderbergers are made of atoms, and they are affected as well.